Molly Parker hadn't slept properly in 3 days. The dry heat had settled over the valley like a blanket, turning her small apartment into an oven despite the struggling air conditioner. Summer in California was always rough, but this year felt different, hotter, angrier. "Another scorcher," the radio DJ announced as Molly poured her coffee. "We're looking at 102 degrees today with humidity at just 8%. Folks, remember to stay hydrated out there." Molly checked her phone. She had 4 clients today, starting with Mr. Abernathy at 9 a.m. She dreaded visiting his house. The old man kept his thermostat at 76 degrees year-round, claiming anything colder hurt his joints. Today that would feel like a refrigerator. She packed her usual supplies: blood pressure cuff, pulse oximeter, medication organizer, and her clipboard with client notes. As she walked to her car, she noticed how the morning sun felt aggressive against her skin. The air tasted dusty. Mr. Abernathy lived in a modest ranch-style house on the outskirts of town, backing up against the foothills. It was a beautiful location, but isolated. When Molly pulled into his gravel driveway at 8:55 a.m., she noticed his newspaper still sitting in its plastic sleeve. Strange. He usually retrieved it at dawn. She knocked on the front door. "Mr. Abernathy, it's Molly from Valley Home Health." After a moment, she heard shuffling. The door opened to reveal Frank Abernathy, 78, in plaid pajama pants and a white undershirt. His gray hair stuck up at odd angles. "You're early," he grumbled. "Actually, I'm right on time," Molly smiled, holding up her phone. "May I come in?" The house smelled musty, with an underlying scent of old coffee. Dishes were piled in the sink, another bad sign. Mr. Abernathy was usually fastidious about cleanliness. "How are you feeling today?" Molly asked, setting down her bag. "Fine, just tired. Haven't been sleeping well." Molly nodded sympathetically. "The heat makes it difficult." "It's not the heat," he said, lowering himself into his recliner. "It's the damn coyotes. They've been howling all night, getting closer too." "I didn't know we had coyotes in this area." "We didn't. Not until recently." He pointed toward the back window. "They're coming down from the hills, probably thirsty." Molly began her routine assessment. Blood pressure was elevated, 158/92, pulse 90, respiration 22. Temperature normal at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. "Have you been taking your medications, Mr. Abernathy?" "Course I have," he replied too quickly. Molly picked up his pill organizer from the side table. Several compartments for the past week remained full. "It doesn't look like you've taken anything since last Thursday." "Those pills make me feel weird, dizzy, can't think straight." "Mr. Abernathy, your heart condition." "I know about my heart," he snapped. "Been living with it longer than you've been alive." Molly took a deep breath. This wasn't the first time she'd dealt with medication compliance issues, but Mr. Abernathy had always been reliable before. "I understand, but these medications are keeping your heart functioning properly. Without them—" "I said I know." His voice softened. "I'll start taking them again. Tomorrow. Today would be better." He waved dismissively. "Fine. Today." As Molly documented his vitals, she glanced at the small television in the corner. The local news was showing footage of brown hillsides with a ticker at the bottom. "Fire danger extreme. County bans all outdoor burning." "They've been talking about fire risk all week," Mr. Abernathy said, following her gaze. "Same story every summer." "It does seem especially dry this year," Molly replied, thinking about the brittle grass she'd noticed on her drive over. "Back in '89, we had a fire come through these hills. Stopped just short of this house." He pointed to a faded photo on the wall, showing a much younger Frank Abernathy standing in front of the same house, with blackened earth visible in the background. Nature's way of cleaning house. Molly finished her documentation and prepared his morning medications. Did you eat breakfast? Some of these should be taken with food. Not hungry. Even just a piece of toast would help. After some grumbling, he agreed to eat a slice of bread with peanut butter. Molly used the opportunity to check his refrigerator, nearly empty except for condiments, some lunch meat, and a half-gallon of milk that had expired 3 days ago. "Do you need me to pick up some groceries for you?" she asked. "My son's coming this weekend. He'll take me shopping." While Mr. Abernathy ate and took his pills, Molly checked the rest of the house. The back door was unlocked and the bathroom trash hadn't been emptied in what looked like days. More concerning signs that her normally capable client was slipping. As she adjusted a window blind, something caught her eye outside. A thin line of smoke rose from the distant hills. "Mr. Abernathy, do you see that?" He joined her at the window, squinting. Probably just someone burning trash, despite the ban. "Should we call it in?" He shook his head. "Fire department likely knows already. They've got spotters this time of year." Molly wasn't convinced, but she didn't want to argue. She finished her assessment, reviewed his care plan, and prepared to leave. "I'll be back on Thursday, Mr. Abernathy. Please take your medications as prescribed. I've reset your pill organizer and left notes on each compartment." Yes, he muttered, already settling back into his recliner. As Molly drove to her next client, she kept glancing in her rearview mirror at the smoke, which seemed to be growing thicker. By the time she finished with her second client of the day, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Brush fire reported in eastern foothills. Firefighters responding. She checked the location, uncomfortably close to Mr. Abernathy's neighborhood. Throughout her third appointment, Molly found herself distracted, checking her phone for updates. The local news site reported the fire had grown to 50 acres, but was currently being contained. Just as she was leaving her third client's home, her phone blared with an emergency alert. Emergency alert. Wildfire approaching eastern residential areas. Mandatory evacuation ordered for Pine Ridge, Hillside Drive, and Valley View estates. Proceed to designated evacuation centers immediately. Mr. Abernathy lived in Valley View Estates. Molly immediately called his home phone. No answer. She tried twice more while driving toward her fourth appointment, then made a decision. She called her supervisor. "Jana, I need to check on Mr. Abernathy. There's an evacuation order for his neighborhood and he's not answering his phone." "Molly, the agency can't authorize you to enter an evacuation zone," Jana replied, her voice tense. "Emergency services will handle it. He lives alone, has mobility issues, and hasn't been taking his heart medication. Plus, he's been acting confused lately." A pause. "Call 911 and report a vulnerable adult in the evacuation zone. That's the protocol. And if they're overwhelmed, you know how these evacuations go. People fall through the cracks." Another pause. "Molly, I can't tell you to go there, but I also can't stop you as a private citizen. Just be careful and keep me updated." "Thanks, Jana." Molly rescheduled her fourth client and turned her car toward Mr. Abernathy's neighborhood. As she got closer, the sky darkened with smoke. Traffic moved in the opposite direction, people fleeing. She passed 3 fire trucks heading the same way she was. A police barricade blocked the main entrance to Valley View Estates, an officer waving cars away. Molly pulled over and approached on foot, her home health badge visible. "Officer, I have a vulnerable client in there. Elderly, heart condition, lives alone. He's not answering his phone." The officer looked sympathetic but firm. "Ma'am, I can't let anyone through. Fire's moving too fast. I can pass the address to emergency services." "How long until they can check on him?" The officer's radio crackled. He listened, then replied to someone on the other end. "Copy that. Need additional units on the eastern perimeter." To Molly, he said, "It's going to be a while. They're prioritizing the areas directly in the fire path." Molly thought quickly. "What about Creekside Road? Is that access point blocked too?" "Not yet, but it will be soon. Look, I strongly advise." "Thank you, officer," Molly said, already jogging back to her car. Creekside Road was a back way into the neighborhood, mainly used by locals. It wound alongside a dry stream bed before connecting to the eastern edge of Valley View Estates. Molly knew it from her birdwatching excursions last spring. When she reached the turnoff, there was no barricade yet, though she could see flashing lights in the distance, suggesting authorities would close it soon. She accelerated, feeling guilty, but determined. The sky grew darker as she drove, not from approaching evening, but from the thickening smoke. Ash began to fall like gray snow, accumulating on her windshield. She turned on her headlights, despite it being only 3 p.m. As she wound up Creekside Road, Molly's phone rang. The caller ID showed Valley Home Health. "Molly, where are you?" Jana sounded worried. "Almost at Mr. Abernathy's. The smoke is getting thick, but I don't see actual fire yet. The news is saying the fire jumped the containment line. It's moving faster than they predicted." "I'm almost there. I'll just get him out and head straight to the evacuation center. The power grid is failing in that area. If the pumps go down..." "I know. No water pressure. I'll be quick." As Molly turned onto Mr. Abernathy's street, her phone lost signal. The houses looked abandoned. Garage doors open from hasty departures. Garden hoses unraveled across lawns in futile last-minute defense attempts. Mr. Abernathy's house appeared untouched, his car still in the driveway. Molly parked and ran to the front door, coughing as the smoky air scratched her throat. "Mr. Abernathy, it's Molly." She pounded on the door. When there was no answer, she tried the handle. Locked. She ran around to the back, remembering the unlocked door from earlier. It was still open. She burst into the kitchen. "Mr. Abernathy, we need to evacuate." The house was quiet, except for the television, still playing in the living room. She found him in his recliner, seemingly asleep. "Mr. Abernathy?" Molly shook his shoulder. He startled awake, confused. "What? What's happening?" "There's a wildfire approaching. We need to evacuate now." He blinked slowly. "A fire? No. They always stop them before they reach here." "Not this time. Look outside." The view from the living room window was alarming. The sky had turned an eerie orange-gray, and ash fell steadily. In the distance, toward the hills, an orange glow was visible through the smoke. "Jesus," Mr. Abernathy whispered. "We need to go right now. Is there anything essential you need to take? Medications? Important documents?" The old man seemed to snap out of his confusion. "My lockbox, in the bedroom closet, and my medications." "Good. Get your medications. I'll find the lockbox." As Molly headed toward the bedroom, the lights flickered, then went out. The television died mid-sentence from a news anchor. "Power's gone," Mr. Abernathy called unnecessarily. In the bedroom, Molly used her phone flashlight to locate the lockbox in the closet, a small fireproof safe that was thankfully lightweight. She grabbed it and returned to the living room, where Mr. Abernathy had collected his pill bottles in a plastic shopping bag. "Do you have water? We should take some water bottles." "A few in the pantry." Molly found 4 bottles of water and added them to their evacuation supplies. "Anything else vital? Photos? Keepsakes?" Mr. Abernathy pointed to the photo of him after the '89 fire. "Just that one." Molly took it off the wall. "Let's go." As they headed for the front door, Mr. Abernathy suddenly clutched his chest, his face contorting. "What's wrong?" Molly asked, though she already suspected. "Just need a minute," he gasped. "Chest feels tight." "Is it pain? Are you having chest pain?" "Pressure, like an elephant, sitting on me." Molly helped him to the couch. "When did this start?" "Been coming and going, since yesterday." Molly felt a spike of anxiety. These were classic heart attack symptoms, likely exacerbated by stress and wildfire smoke. And they were in an evacuation zone with no power and potentially no emergency services available. "Mr. Abernathy, I think you're having cardiac symptoms. Do you have nitroglycerin prescribed?" He nodded weakly. Bathroom. Medicine cabinet. Haven't needed it in years. Molly rushed to check. The small bottle of nitroglycerin tablets was there. But when she checked the expiration date, her heart sank. 2019. She returned to the living room. These expired 5 years ago. They won't be effective. She checked his pulse. Rapid and irregular. We need to get you to a hospital. Just need to rest a minute. No, Molly said firmly. This is serious. We have to go now. She helped him to his feet, bearing much of his weight. At the front door, she paused to assess the situation outside. The smoke had thickened, reducing visibility to about half a block. The orange glow on the horizon seemed brighter. Just as they stepped onto the porch, Molly's phone blared with another emergency alert. Emergency update. Wildfire containment efforts have failed. Fire advancing rapidly toward Valley View Estates. All residents must evacuate immediately. Creekside Road access now closed due to fire activity. Use western evacuation, route only. Molly felt a chill of fear. Creekside Road, her way in and planned escape route, was now cut off. And Mr. Abernathy was in no condition to walk far. As they stood on the porch, a new sound became audible beneath the distant roar of the fire. Water rushing from faucets and garden hoses up and down the street as the pressure in the water system plummeted to nothing. They were trapped, with a raging wildfire approaching. No power, no water, and a man in cardiac distress who hadn't taken his heart medication in days. The orange glow on the horizon pulsed brighter, like a living thing watching them. Get back inside, Molly told Mr. Abernathy, guiding him back through the door. The smoke outside was becoming too thick to breathe comfortably. But the evacuation, he protested weakly. We need a new plan. Molly helped him back to his recliner. We can't use Creekside Road now, and you're in no condition to walk far. She quickly closed all the windows in the house, stuffing damp towels along the bottom of doors and windowsills to reduce smoke infiltration. Her mind raced. They needed help, but her phone showed no service. Cell towers must be affected by the fire or overloaded with emergency calls. Mr. Abernathy's landline yielded only a dead tone. The power outage had likely affected telephone service too. Do you have any neighbors who might still be around? Someone with a vehicle? Mr. Abernathy shook his head. Most are vacation homes, empty this time of year. He winced again, rubbing his chest. Molly checked his pulse. Still rapid and irregular. I need to find your most recent medication. The ones you actually have been taking, not just what's in your organizer. She searched the kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom, finding scattered pill bottles in various locations. Some were duplicates of the same medication with different dates. She organized what she found, identifying his heart medications, a beta blocker, an ACE inhibitor, and a blood thinner. When exactly did you last take any of these? She asked, returning to the living room with the bottles. Mr. Abernathy looked sheepish. Maybe 4 days ago. The diuretic makes me pee too much, and the beta blocker makes me tired. Molly bit back frustration. Now wasn't the time for a lecture. I think we should take your regular doses now. It won't work immediately, but it might help stabilize your condition. As she helped him take the medications with water, Molly contemplated their options. They couldn't stay here indefinitely. The fire was approaching, and even if it didn't reach the house, the smoke would become unbearable. But leaving on foot wasn't viable with Mr. Abernathy's condition. They needed transportation. Mr. Abernathy, does your car have gas? Should be nearly full. Filled it up last week when my son visited. Good, that's our backup plan. Molly went to the window again. The smoke was so thick she could barely see the house across the street. Ash continued to fall, collecting on surfaces like dirty snow. The wind had picked up too, which wasn't good news for firefighting efforts. Her phone blared with another alert. Emergency update. Wind shift reported. fire now advancing from northeast. All Valley View Estates residents evacuate immediately towards southwest exit. Emergency personnel cannot guarantee rescue for those who remain. Molly felt her pulse quicken. Northeast. That meant the fire was now coming from the direction of Creekside Road, potentially cutting off the main neighborhood exit as well. Mr. Abernathy, we need to try reaching your car. The fire's changing direction. I can't go out in that smoke, he wheezed. My lungs. He was right. The smoke would likely trigger a full cardiac event in his condition. Molly thought quickly. Do you have any clean rags, bandanas, cotton t-shirts? Laundry room, bottom drawer. Molly found several clean washcloths and t-shirts. She soaked them in water, wrung them out so they were damp but not dripping, and returned to Mr. Abernathy. We'll put these over our faces. It's not perfect, but it will help filter some of the smoke. She demonstrated by tying a damp washcloth around her face. We just need to make it to your car. Mr. Abernathy nodded reluctantly. Let's try. Getting him ready took precious minutes. Molly helped him put on a jacket despite the heat. The extra layer would offer some protection from ash and embers. She gathered their essential items, medications, water, his lockbox, and the photo, into a small duffel bag she found in his closet. Ready? She asked, as I'll ever be. They opened the front door to a transformed world. The afternoon sun was completely obscured by smoke, casting everything in an eerie orange darkness. The air itself felt thick, making breathing laborious even through the damp cloth. Ash swirled in the hot wind. Halfway to the car, Mr. Abernathy stumbled, clutching his chest again. Just need to catch my breath, he gasped. We're almost there, Molly encouraged, though fear gnawed at her. His skin had taken on a grayish tinge, and his breathing was increasingly labored. At the car, Molly helped him into the passenger seat, before tossing their bag in the back and taking the driver's position. The key was in the center console, where Mr. Abernathy had said it would be. The engine started on the first try, a small mercy. Molly turned the air conditioning to recirculation mode to reduce smoke intake and began carefully backing out of the driveway. Visibility was perhaps 50 feet at best. Molly drove slowly, straining to see the road through the thickening smoke. They passed abandoned homes, some with sprinklers still futilely running despite the failed water pressure. Main exits, southwest, Mr. Abernathy reminded her between labored breaths. I know, I'm trying to figure out which streets will get us there. Valley View Estates was a maze-like development with curving roads named after trees: Oak Lane, Pine Circle, Aspen Way. Without GPS and with limited visibility, navigation was challenging. They turned onto what Molly thought was Maple Drive, which should connect to the main exit road. Instead, they found themselves facing a fallen tree blocking the entire street, likely brought down by the increasingly strong winds. Damn it, Molly muttered, making a 3-point turn. We'll have to find another way. Mr. Abernathy's breathing had worsened. He leaned against the passenger window, eyes half closed. Mr. Abernathy, stay with me. Molly reached over to shake his arm. So tired, he mumbled. I know, but you need to stay awake. Panic edged into her voice. Talk to me. Tell me about your son. Michael. Good boy. Lives in Sacramento. What does he do there? Engineer. Has 2 kids. Molly kept him talking as she navigated through the smoke-filled streets, turning around when they encountered dead ends or blocked roads. The wind grew stronger, rocking the car and bringing new waves of thicker smoke. Through the haze, Molly occasionally caught glimpses of orange flames in the distance, seeming to surround them from multiple directions. After 15 minutes of increasingly desperate navigation attempts, they emerged onto a wider road. A wooden sign, barely visible through the smoke, read Valley View Main Exit. We made it to the main road, Molly said with relief. This should lead straight out to the highway. Mr. Abernathy didn't respond. Mr. Abernathy? Molly glanced over while driving. His eyes were closed, his head lolled to one side. Frank! The use of his first name seemed to rouse him slightly. He grunted, but didn't open his eyes. Molly pressed down on the accelerator, the need for caution now balanced against the urgent need for medical help. The main exit road wound downhill through a wooded area, trees that hadn't yet been developed into housing lots. Now those trees posed a new danger, as burning embers caught in the canopies. A loud crack sounded ahead, and Molly slammed on the brakes just as a flaming branch crashed onto the road in front of them. She swerved, narrowly avoiding it, then continued forward. The smoke thickened impossibly as they entered a section where the fire had clearly already passed through. Small flames still licked at tree trunks on both sides of the road, and the heat was intense even inside the car with the windows closed. The air conditioning struggled, gradually losing its battle against the external temperature. Almost there, Molly said, though she wasn't sure if Mr. Abernathy could hear her. Just hold on. The road curved sharply, and as they rounded the bend, Molly's heart sank. 50 yards ahead, the exit was blocked by emergency vehicles and a police barricade. A fire truck was parked sideways across the road, and firefighters worked to combat flames that had jumped to the trees beside the exit. Molly honked repeatedly as she approached. A firefighter in full gear turned, waving frantically for her to stop. She pulled up as close as she dared. Rolling down her window slightly, she called out, "We need help." "He's having a cardiac event." The firefighter approached, the reflective strips on his uniform gleaming orange in the firelight. "You need to turn around. This area isn't safe. There's no other way out, and he needs medical attention immediately." The firefighter peered into the car, assessing Mr. Abernathy's condition. He spoke into his radio, then returned to Molly. "We've got paramedics at the base of the hill. Can you keep going for another 5 minutes?" "How?" "The road's blocked." He pointed to a narrow dirt track branching off the main road. "Service road. It's rough but passable. Goes around this section and rejoins the main exit about half a mile down. We can't move the engines right now. We're trying to keep the fire from jumping across the road completely." Molly looked at the dirt path doubtfully. "Will my car make it?" "It's either that or you stay here, which isn't an option. Fire's moving too fast." A sudden explosion of sparks erupted from a pine tree near the barricade as it was fully engulfed, sending burning debris onto the fire truck. The firefighter turned away. "Go now! Follow the service road until you hit pavement again." Molly didn't need to be told twice. She reversed, then turned onto the narrow dirt path. It was barely wide enough for the car, with branches scraping the sides as they passed. The uneven surface bounced them roughly, jostling Mr. Abernathy, who moaned but remained semi-conscious. The service road wound through denser forest, smoke so thick that Molly could see only a few feet ahead, even with high beams on. She drove by feel as much as sight, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, trying to keep the tires from sliding in loose dirt. A fallen branch scraped the underside of the car with a horrible screech. Molly winced but kept going, afraid to stop for even a moment. The trees began to thin, and suddenly they broke out of the forest into an open area. Through the smoke, Molly could make out the main road again, about 20 feet below them. The service road was supposed to connect, but a section had washed away, leaving a steep, eroded embankment between them and the paved exit route. No, Molly whispered. She couldn't turn around. The road was too narrow. Going back would mean driving straight toward the advancing fire. She stopped the car, assessing the embankment. It was steep, but not vertical, sandy and eroded, but potentially navigable in a desperate situation, which this certainly was. "Mr. Abernathy," she said loudly, shaking his shoulder. "I need to try something risky. Hold on if you can." He didn't respond. His breathing was increasingly shallow, his skin clammy to the touch. Molly fastened his seatbelt more securely, then her own. She backed up as far as she could on the narrow service road, then faced the eroded gap between them and safety. "Please work," she whispered, then pressed the accelerator. The car lurched forward, picking up speed on the dirt road. When they reached the edge, Molly braced herself, but kept her foot firm on the gas. The front wheels went over the edge, and for a sickening moment, the car seemed to hang in the air before the front tires hit the slope. They bounced hard, the undercarriage scraping painfully on hidden rocks, but the momentum carried them forward and down. They hit the paved road with a jarring thud that Molly felt in her teeth. The car fishtailed, but she managed to straighten it out. Behind them, a small rock slide of dirt and pebbles cascaded down the embankment they'd just descended. There was no time to process what she'd just done. Molly accelerated down the now clear exit road. Within minutes, the smoke began to thin, and she caught sight of flashing emergency lights ahead. Multiple ambulances, police cars, and fire command vehicles were staged at a makeshift emergency area at the base of the hill. Molly pulled up to the nearest ambulance, honking frantically. 2 paramedics ran over as she exited the car. "He's having cardiac symptoms," she explained rapidly. "Hasn't taken his medication in days. Semi-responsive." The paramedics moved with practiced efficiency, extracting Mr. Abernathy from the car and transferring him to a gurney. One placed an oxygen mask over his face while the other started checking vitals. "BP's 90/60, pulse 120 and irregular," one called out. "Possible MI." "You his family?" the other paramedic asked Molly. "Home health aide. I was checking on him when the evacuation order came." "You came back for him?" The paramedic looked surprised as they wheeled Mr. Abernathy toward the ambulance. "He wouldn't have made it out otherwise. You probably saved his life." He glanced at her ash-covered clothes and smoke-reddened eyes. "You should get checked out too. Smoke inhalation can cause delayed symptoms." Molly nodded absently, watching as they loaded Mr. Abernathy into the ambulance. One of the paramedics placed cardiac monitor leads on his chest, while the other started an IV line. "Can I come with him?" she asked. "Not in the ambulance. Space is too limited, and we need to work. But I can tell you which hospital we're taking him to." Molly noted the hospital information, then remembered Mr. Abernathy's belongings. She retrieved the duffel bag from the back seat of her car, now covered in dirt and ash, but with contents intact. "His medications and important documents," she explained, handing the bag to the paramedic. "And a photo he wanted to save." The paramedic nodded, placing the bag beside Mr. Abernathy. "We're heading out now. You should get to an evacuation shelter." As the ambulance doors closed, Molly finally registered her own exhaustion. Her throat burned, her eyes stung, and every muscle ached. A police officer approached, guiding her toward a first aid station where other evacuees were being treated. "The fire jumped 3 containment lines," the officer explained. "Nobody expected it to move so fast. You're lucky you got out when you did." Molly accepted a bottle of water and an oxygen mask, breathing in the cool, clean air gratefully. From where she sat, she could see back up the hillside they'd escaped from. The entire ridge was ablaze now, flames visible even through the smoke. Valley View Estates had become an island in a sea of fire. Her phone, miraculously still working, displayed a new emergency alert. Emergency update. Valley View Estates now fully engulfed. All evacuation efforts suspended. Firefighters pulled back to defensive positions. Residents who failed to evacuate should seek shelter in structures with concrete foundations and call 911 with exact location. Molly shuddered, realizing how close they'd come to being trapped. If they'd waited even 10 more minutes. A paramedic checked her over, pronouncing her stable but recommending a hospital visit for further assessment of smoke exposure. Molly agreed to go, but first used her phone to call her supervisor. "Jana, it's Molly. We made it out." "Oh, thank God." Jana's voice cracked with emotion. When the news said Valley View was cut off completely, I thought, "It was close," Molly admitted. "They've taken Mr. Abernathy to County Hospital. Possible heart attack." "And you?" "I'm okay. Headed to the hospital too, just as a precaution." "Molly, what you did was incredibly risky. Brave, but risky." "I couldn't leave him there." After ending the call, Molly watched as new fire trucks arrived, staged by incident commanders who discussed strategy over radio calls and paper maps spread on vehicle hoods. The evacuation center behind them bustled with displaced residents receiving water, food, and emergency supplies. 3 days later, Molly sat beside Mr. Abernathy's hospital bed. He looked smaller somehow, connected to monitors and an IV, but his color had improved dramatically. "My son says I'm moving in with him," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "Says he's not taking no for an answer after all this." "That sounds like a good plan," Molly agreed. "You'll need support during recovery." The doctors had confirmed he'd experienced a moderate heart attack, likely developing over several days as he'd skipped his medications. With proper treatment, they expected a reasonable recovery, though he would need cardiac rehabilitation and consistent medication management. "They're saying nothing's left of the house," Mr. Abernathy said quietly. "Whole neighborhood burned to the ground." Molly nodded. The wildfire had consumed over 15,000 acres before being partially contained, destroying nearly 200 homes in Valley View Estates and surrounding areas. The cause was still under investigation, but early reports suggested downed power lines combined with extreme drought conditions. "At least we saved this," Molly said, placing the framed photo on his bedside table, him standing in front of his house after the '89 fire. "Full circle, I guess." Mr. Abernathy studied it thoughtfully. "You know what's funny? After that '89 fire, I installed a sprinkler system. Thought it would protect the house if another fire came." He gave a weak laugh. "Fat lot of good it did with no water pressure." "You couldn't have predicted that." "No," he agreed. "Just like I couldn't have predicted you'd come back for me." He reached out, taking her hand in his gnarled one. "My son asked me who he should thank for saving his old man. I told him it was just my pushy home health aide who doesn't know when to mind her own business." Molly smiled. "Just doing my job." "We both know that's not true." He squeezed her hand. "Thank you." Outside the hospital window, the sky remained hazy with distant smoke. The wildfire still burned in the foothills, though it no longer threatened populated areas. News reports warned of more fires to come as the summer progressed, with drought conditions worsening across the state. But for now, in this moment, they had survived. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but alive. Sometimes, Molly reflected, that was victory enough against forces so much larger than ourselves. She looked back at Mr. Abernathy and found him asleep, his breathing steady and monitored. The photo of his house, now gone but preserved in image, watched over him from the bedside table. A reminder that sometimes, even in the worst fires, something always remains.